Welcome back to Jim's Jeeps. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 98 TJ. Been driving it for a while, actually all summer while not doing videos, and it developed a clinking sound in the back, almost like stacking free weights at the gym. I'm not really sure what that was. I did some preliminary investigation. I looked at all the control arm bushings, things like that. Didn't really find anything. Wait till you see what I found. Then we're going to fix it today. I'll show you how it's done. Thanks for joining us today. So the first thing we're going to do is support the Jeep on jack stands. You don't want to be under the vehicle, simply on the hydraulic jack itself. Okay, and so here we have the rear suspension, the spring. The spring is still sitting in the spring pockets, or the keepers there. The bump stop is pretty much gone. But that's not what was creating the problem. Control arm bushing in the back here looks fine. The shock absorber mount on the axle looks fine. But if we look at the top of the shock, I can get a picture of that without this wigging out. If you look at the top of the shock there, you can see the bar that goes across into the frame, and then there's a rubber gasket in there. It's pretty much kind of the top of the shock bushing there in the round section up top there where that bar goes through. The shock is separated from that bushing, and so what's happening is the top of the shock is bouncing up and down when it needs to on that pin, also hitting the side of that little pocket there in the frame. And so we're going to take that apart, get this shock out of here, and see what's going on with that. It's been driving me nuts, and it's time to fix it. Alright, super tight to film up in there, but effectively what happened is this bushing in the top of the shock pulled out, and it's like totally ripped up here on this floating pin. And then you can see here the top of the shock mount was getting chewed away by hitting the frame. And hopefully up top here in the pocket on the frame there's a little notch too, up there, right here, right there. There's a little notch. This is sort of a bad design to begin with, that upper shock mount area. I don't think anything's bent or broken, but the shock hitting, cutting a notch in the frame there is probably not the best thing around. So being that it's already rusty, I'm going to hit it with some primer and some flat black paint just to try and seal it up a little bit. This car was driven in the winter one winter, and I live in an area with salty roads, so it won't be driven in the salty roads again, because salt roads just eat Jeeps like there's no tomorrow. So in any case, I don't think this was a rust issue with the shock. I think it was just a premature failure, bad design of the shock itself. Not sure, but we're gonna put a new shock on, and hopefully that'll stop the clinky clank noise from happening in the back of the Jeep here. Okay, so you can see from that last clip that the GoPro wigged out and started doing some strange stuff. It went into time warp mode, which is kind of a time-lapse mode. Not exactly sure how that happened, but let's recap what we did and tried to talk about. So at the top of the shock, there are two bolts that hold this pin on, and in an ordinary shock, the pin would be through this shock mount on the top of the shock, and two bolts on the top hold it in, just like this one over here. So you undo those two bolts and the pivot pin bolt on the bottom, and the shock will come off. The top bolts are 13 millimeter. The bottom pin bolt is a 18 for the larger nut and a 15 for the bolt head on the bottom. And couldn't really find a torque spec for those. If I do, I'll put it on the screen here. And this was what was wrong with my Jeep. This bushing failed. The shock came off out of the top keeper there and started banging on the frame, which you can see right here. There's a notch cut into the top of the shock mount. Alright, so that does it for this episode. I hope you had some value out of it, even though the video got completely screwed up. Apologize about that. If you like the video, hit like. Please consider subscribing. We'll have more videos in the future. Thanks for joining Jim's Jeeps today.